Well, for several weeks now, I've been involved in this series of messages on the judges of Israel. And you may wonder, well, why take the time to study these judges? But there's a lot of similarity between the kind of things they face and the kind of things we face in our life as we live our life. And as we study them, or have studied them, I think we've seen a lot of overlapping principles and applications that we can apply to our own Christian life. And today I've come to the conclusion of this series, and I'm preaching on what I've listed as the 13th judge. When you look at some commentaries and look at some of the view of the book of Judges and the judges of Israel, some say 14. They include Samuel as one of those. I don't have a problem with that, because Samuel was a great judge that ruled and led Israel. He's not mentioned much in the book of Judges, but he was there until say David and Saul and the other kings came about. But there was these judges that were over Israel before the kings that came into being. And so there's great significance as to what happened in their life. And we've talked about all of them. If you've missed one of those messages or need to refresh one of them, there's recordings of the messages. You can talk to those back at the media room. Brother Lee, he'll get you a copy of it, and you can listen to it. But today we'll talk about one that most all of us are familiar with. If you've been at church long, or been in a children's class long, or been involved in Bible study for any length of time, you talked about Samson. Samson is a figure that we all are familiar with and talk about a lot in our own life. But there's some great understanding about Samson, I believe, to help us understand our Christian life. And I've called this message "Starting Right, but Ending Wrong." Let me read the text, and I want to make some comments about that. Judges chapter 13, beginning in verse 1. Said, "Again the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. You see this principle again? Again, the children of Israel did evil, and they forsook God, and they go into the hands of the enemy, the Philistines, for 40 years. 40 years is a long time. In this particular time frame, that would have been 2 generations of servitude to the Philistines. Now there was a certain man, Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, to his wife, 'Indeed now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines.'" Now, I'm going to talk about the story of Samson today in passing through the message. And it'll be interwoven through, but I'm going to deal with some other principles. And we know the basic story. Samson got involved with a lady by the name of Delilah, a Philistine woman. And eventually she convinced him to tell the secret of his strength, which was his hair and it wasn't just his hair, it was his devotion as a Nazarite, completely devoted and consecrated unto God. But the breaking of that was through the cutting of his hair. And his hair was cut by Delilah, and then Samson is taken by the Philistines and made spectacle of. His eyes were poked out, he's made blind, and he's made to grind at the mill in front of the Philistine leaders, and they mocked him and they laughed at him. But the story is much deeper than that. There's much more to the underlying meaning about what happened to Samson than just the story of what happened to Samson alone. But it's a very sad story. As it states in my opening page there, that he had a great beginning, but his ending was bad. And there are many today who start right, but they end wrong. They allow sinful practices to rob them of the favor of God in their life. They began with passion, they began with eagerness, they began with great desire, and they end up with pride and with failure. That they began very faithful, they began committed to God and to His ways, and they end up in unfaithfulness. There are many who start right, but they end up wrong. So that would be a great message within this story of Samson, that we apply this to our life, that we not only start right, but we end right. Not only begin, but we keep going. Put your neighbor and say, never give up. Never quit. Never stop. Don't ever look back. But let's keep going. Now, Samson is our example today. Now, I'm going to give you 5 characteristics of Samson's life that are involved around this story of his life, or the reality of his life, and involved around this theme of starting but ending wrong, that you might want to write down and you may want to remember. Because these things could be applied to our life as well. First of all, Samson began with love, but he ended with lust. Now, when you read about Samson, there's several chapters that are in the last part of the book of Judges that deal with Samson, 14, 15, 16, that deal with Samson and his life and what happened. And Samson, he begins with real marital love. He fell in love, as you read, with another lady of the Philistines. And there's a whole discourse about it. And he had his father and his mother to go and get her to be his wife. The custom then was that you paid the dowry of marriage, and when the man saw someone for marriage, he would seek and see if she would be available, and blah blah blah. The family would do that, and I'm glad we don't do that today. I never would have got Sharon. Her dad would have kicked me out the door. But it was different then, and somehow Samson's father and mother went through the process to make Timnah, it's found in Judges 14, to be the wife of Samson. And you don't hear much about this story, but the same thing happened with Timnah that happened with Delilah. Timnah was convinced by the Philistines, because Samson was already, I don't think we're told in the book of Judges all the things that Samson did against the Philistines, because Samson was a strong man, and as they would come against him, he had the strength to battle against them and was victorious and protected his home and protected his family. But Timnah also was convinced by the Philistines to try to get Samson to tell her what his strength was. The long story goes that wife basically broke the marriage vow, and she was lost, and then apparently Samson is going through this process of maybe trying to find love and trying to find a relationship again. We don't know. I'm not trying to add more to it than there is, but when you read it with what I'm saying, you'll get what I'm saying, I think. But somehow he winds up involved with Delilah, which was not a relationship based upon love, but a relationship based upon lust. It was based upon the wrong principles and the wrong process. Now, I can spend a little time here and talk about relationships and how relationships should be. And relationships that are built upon lust will always end with problems. And if they're built upon love, it still takes a lot of work to keep that going. But love must be the striving force that keeps a marriage together and keeps people going. But Samson, in this process of going through his life, he began with love, but he ended up in lust as he was involved with Delilah. And when you get to chapter 16, he's with Delilah, and Delilah says, "How can you say you love me and you won't tell me all the secrets of your life?" And of course, then Samson reveals it all, but it wasn't based upon love, because if it was based upon love, she would have honored him with that secret rather than using it against him. And so it was based upon lust. Secondly, Samson began with consecration, but he ended up with carelessness. Before Samson was born, an angel told his mother of his consecration to the Lord. Remember the text I read? And the angel said to the lady, "Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink no wine, nor silver drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarene to God from the womb to the day of his death." He began with consecration. Not many people were able to keep the Nazarite commitment of dedication to the Lord. It meant submission to Him. There are many Nazarites. When you study, there are still Nazarites today with this great commitment to the Lord, which includes some of the same things that Samson was involved with. But Samson began with this consecration. But it ended with carelessness in his spiritual life. Remember, Delilah came to him and said, "Samson, please tell me of what's the strength in your life." And Samson said, "If you'll just take 7 brand new bowstrings and tie me up with them, they've never been used before, then my strength will be gone." So Samson lulls him to sleep, and Samson's asleep, and she ties him with those 7 bowstrings and declares, "The Philistines are upon you." And they were at the door waiting, and Samson comes awake and breaks those strings and runs away. Then later on, Delilah comes and said, "Samson, you're lying to me. Now tell me," he said, "if you'll take some new rope and you'll tie me with some new rope and bind me with that new rope, then when I'll be bound and I can't have any strength." So Delilah gets him to sleep again and binds him with the rope and cries, "The Philistines are upon you." And the Philistines come, and Samson breaks away that rope and he runs and he's free. Delilah then, and when you get to chapter 16, she's crying with those crocodile tears, and she's doing all that stuff and saying, "Oh, Samson, you say you love me. You don't really love me. If you really loved me, you would tell me." And I really like what the New King James Version says. It says that when she pestered him, let me read it. In Judges 16 and 16, it says, "It came to pass when she pestered him daily." You know that word, don't you? You ain't got to respond to that. "With her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. Then Samson broke down and said, I'm a Nazarite, and if my hair is ever cut," and you're the story. And so she gets him to sleep again, and she cuts his hair and cries, "The Philistines are upon you," and he is taken away and made a spectacle of. He began with consecration. He began with a dedication that was committed to the will and plan of God, a dedicated Nazarite. But he ended up in carelessness by letting down through weakness and through his fleshly desires and his own fleshly lust, and he became careless in his life. Thirdly, Samson began with strength, but he ended with shame. Samson was given special physical ability to deliver Israel. In fact, if you read it, you'll find that early on, as Samson is involved with Philistines, he's going down, and this lion comes against him. And the Bible says that he grabs this lion and tears it apart like it was a little kitten, just with his bare hands. And there's a story about how he put the lion carcass and the beads made a hive in it. That's where Tamara came against him with the riddle that was made up with that. That's another part of the story. But he had this great strength. Another time, when he broke the ropes that he was tied with, the Bible said that he ran and found the jawbone of a donkey, and with that jawbone of a donkey slew over 1,000 of the Philistines that came against him because of his strength and his power. The Bible said that one time when they came against him, he was down at Delilah's, and they cried out and they came against him, and he came and picked up the gates of the city at night and just picked us up, post and all, and carried them outside the city and set them outside the city. He was a strong man. I mean, sort of like some of you men are, real strong. Amen. But he had this great strength, but God gave him great strength. And with that great strength, Samson began with great strength, but he ended with shame. In the end of his life, he had not lost all that strength, But he was now being made a spectacle of by the Philistines because of his failure, and he's grinding at the mill, and they would come together with their meetings. They would say, bring in Samson, that we can watch him perform. He's not disturbing us anymore. He's not killing any more of our people. He's not tearing our gateposts down. He's not doing things that tying foxes' tails together and doing all the things that Samson did. We got Samson bound, and now he's our slave, and he is going to, we're going to make spectacle of him. And they made fun of him. In the end, Samson was filled with shame and embarrassment. The Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. Fourthly, Samson began with devotion, but he ended in death. Samson was a devoted Nazarite from birth. Being a Nazarite involved consecration, devotion, dedication, commitment. The Nazarite had outward signs that demonstrated who they were: the growth of the hair, abstinence from wine and strong drink, and other things that they were committed to, which demonstrated their commitment to God. Samson kept all the Nazarite vows until he got entangled with Delilah. Then when he got entangled with Delilah, he was then brought to the situation where eventually it ended in death. Let me read a little bit from Judges chapter 16. If you have your Bibles, you're going to read on. It's not going to be on the screen. I just want to read it. It says, so it happened, when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may perform for us. This is the Philistine leaders. So they called for Samson from the prison. He performed for them, and they stationed him between the pillars. Then Samson said to the lad who held his hand, let me feel the pillars which support the temple, so I can lean on them. Now the temple was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 men and women on the roof watching while Samson performed. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray. Just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars which supported the temple, and he braced himself against them, one on the right and the other on the left. Then Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed in his life. Even though he brought vengeance upon the Philistines, Samson lost his own life. Samson began with devotion, but he ended in death. Which brings me to point number 5, which pulls it all together. If you wrote any of them down, you need to write this one. Samson began as a deliverer, but he ended defeated. Let me explain. In the text I read to you, it talked about the angel saying to his mother, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out or from the Philistines. He shall be a dedicated Nazarene, and his job in life shall be to deliver Israel from the Philistines. They had been oppressed for 40 years under the Philistines. Samson is born. Samson was God's chosen man to bring deliverance to Israel. But Samson, he began as a deliverer, but he ended defeated. He killed many of the Philistines, 1,000 here, 100 here, coming against the forces there, doing things that demonstrated his abilities in other places. But he never, ever was able to bring deliverance. He scared the Philistines. He terrified them. He destroyed many at various times of his life. But Samson never brought the deliverance to Israel that God had intended him to bring. How sad for God to have a destiny and a direction for our lives, and us miss it by doing things selfishly and personally. He missed what God's plan for his life was because he got involved in his own fleshly desires, and that pulled him away from what God had plans for him in his life. We are no better than Samson. We are no farther removed from the plan of God than Samson, man or woman. You can rest assured God has a plan for your life. God has not called you and set you into the service of the kingdom. God does not save you with a doomed end desire. God saves us. God uses us. God has a plan in our life. God has a destiny for our lives that he wants us to follow. If we miss that destiny, it's not God's fault. It's our fault. And Samson started right. He was born right. He was given the strength. He was given the ability. He was given the opportunity. But he allowed his own selfish desires hinder him from reaching the destiny that God had planned in his life. Check yourself just a moment. Just a moment, forget about Samson. Just a moment, forget about me and think about yourself. Are you missing God's plan for your life because of some foolish choices you're making? Are you missing God's plan for your life because you're following some rabbit trail that you think is your plan for your life? Let me tell you, you need to back up and start over and say, God, not my will, but thy will be done. And say, God, let me change. And don't let me follow my plan. Let me follow your plan for my life. Let me not do what I want to do. Let me do what you want me to do. And let me be effective for you. Don't let me follow after my desires that will end in failure, but let me follow after you that will bring the destiny you have for my life, that will take me from this life to an eternal life in serving you. Samson started right, but he ended wrong. Now, yet the saddest thing in the whole story of Samson is not the story of his life. It's not the things I've shared. The saddest thing is found in Judges chapter 16, verse 24. And I've got that scripture for you. Look at this. When the people saw him, they praised their God. For they said, our God, the God of the Philistines, has delivered into our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our land, and the one who multiplied our dead. Samson was used in a way to begin the process of bringing deliverance to Israelites. He tied those foxtails together and lit them with fire with a torch in their tail, and they set the wheat fields on fire, and that was a way of taking away the food to bring victory for the Israelites. He, as I told, he took the jawbone of the donkey and he slew the 1,000 and did all these things. And here they knew it. The Philistine leaders knew it. But the sad thing was that because he had given in, because he had missed his destiny, and because he was in the turmoil that he was, not only was he not able to deliver Israel, he was able to bring embarrassment to God and cause them to praise their God, because they said, now we've been able to capture the man that was God's man. And when they saw Samson, they praised their God because he was in their captive. Yes. How sad. What's that to us? If we're not careful, hear me, church. If we're not careful, we'll let our testimony become a mockery to the plan of God. If we're not careful, we will say one thing with our mouth and another thing with our actions, and those around will mock us and say, they're no more a Christian than the unchristians are. They're no more serving God than those who don't even know who God is. and it brings a disgrace, and it brings a mockery unto God, because when God works in your life and you allow His destiny to be in your life, you're not going to be defeated and grinding at the mill. You're not going to be trampled upon by the enemy. You're going to stand in victory and power and authority. Even though things may be bad around you, you will rise above those. Even though you go through difficulty, it'll not be blamed on that difficulty. What the people around you will see is the victory of God being displayed in a life of faithfulness and a life of commitment unto God. They'll see the things around you crumbling, but they'll see the grace of God standing strong in your life. They'll see things around you coming apart, but they'll see you saying, God is my grace, and His grace is sufficient to meet every need, and God will be glorified even in the calamity around you. But when we give in, and when we fail, and our end becomes defeating, all that we've done to that time is lost. All we've accomplished till then is somewhat failure. We must never give up. We must never stop. We must never turn around. We should be committed to serving God stronger today than we were the day we found Him. And say, God, you have saved me. I'm going to keep on walking. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on serving. I'm going to keep on living for you. I'm not going to let my end be different and let my end be wrong. I want my end to be stronger than my beginning. I want to start for you and keep on keeping on till I make heaven my home. Hallelujah. I feel God in this place. Now, I want to end this message and this series with a song. This is an old song that Sharon and I used to sing years ago. Give me a little more volume if you can. This microphone. That we used to sing years ago. That talks about, the title of the song is The Race. And the race that's mentioned in this song is our life, our Christian life. Our beginning and our continuing to the end. And I think we got the words to it that we're going to see. Running Leonette back there. But I want you to see. This song says The Race. Listen to it. I want it to sort of be a caption and a completion of this message. Many souls have started out to run this race, but many feet have stumbled, trying hard to keep the pace. At times my steps have grown so weary as I watched others pass me by. It makes me wonder who will make it. Is there hope for such as I? Not the the swiftest, nor the one who shines shall be saved. Oh, a crown of life is waiting for those who make it in, those who've run the race with patience, casting off the weight of sin. It doesn't matter when we started or how long the road has been. Oh, it's the end that's so important. Oh, I just got to make it. Not the one who runs the swiftness, nor the one who shines for a day, but the one who endureth to the end. He shall be saved. I want you to bow your heads and close your eyes a moment. I really wish that song would just ring in your spirit for quite some time to come. I really wish for the next several days that would just, you could just sing that song over and over and over. That it would get in your spirit that it's not who we begin only, but it's how we continue. It's great to see people find the Lord and come to know Him and serve Him. And one of the greatest blessings is to see people continue to serve the Lord and continue to live for Him all of their life. I don't know why I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. There may be somebody here today that began several years ago. You started out right, but somewhere along the way you've lost the direction. Guarantee you, if you review your life, you've gotten to where you are because of selfish decisions, avoiding the plan of God, avoiding the will of God, avoiding God's destiny for your life. So you found yourself away from Him today. Let me tell you, it's not too late. You can't change those years you've missed, but you can change the years that are yet to come. And God can touch you and help you make a decision today that will change the rest of your life for Him. And I don't know who you may be, but I know God knows who you are. And God can touch you this morning by His power. I want you to stand with me. I ask you to close your eyes, and I want you to review this. I'm going to sing this chorus again. And as I sing this chorus again, or maybe a verse again, and somehow the Lord is speaking to you, and you need to make that new commitment, a recommitment, or make a commitment. You need to start today. Would you just come, maybe stand here at the front of this altar, and me or Minister Sanders or someone will meet you, and we'll talk with you, and we'll talk to you about making that commitment that will last for a lifetime, not just a short time. Let me sing that second verse. Hallelujah. Oh, a crown of life is waiting for those who make it in, those who run the race with patience, casting off the weight of sin. It doesn't matter when we started or how long the race has been. It's the end that's so important. Oh, I just got to make shines for a day, not the one who endureth to the end. Oh, he shall be saved. Let's sing that chorus together. You know it now. Sing it with me. Oh, God, the one who runs the swiftness, nor the one who shines for a day, but the one who endureth to the end. Oh, he shall be saved. I want Sharon to play that chorus again. And would you with me this morning, right where you are, would you just lift a hand or both hands up to the Lord and say, God, I'm going to make it to the end. I'm going to make a commitment to you today. I'm going to commit it all to you. I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to turn around. I'm not going to give in to the pressures of life. I'm going to commit to you. I'm going to make it to the end. Let's pray that prayer. Father, today I am determined to make it to the end. Father, as we've started and been on this race and been on this road, and lots of things we face, but oh God, your grace and power is sufficient. And today you are working in our life, and today you're speaking to us and telling us we must endure to the end and be faithful. Father, I thank you and I praise you because I know that you're with us and your spirit and power is with us, and you're working in our life to convince us and direct us in our submission to you. Have your way, Father, in every life, every person, as only you can. And God, that you do and accomplish for every person here. We'll give you thanks and praise and glory for it, for we ask it all in Jesus' name, and for his glory and for his honor. Amen and amen and amen. Give the Lord. Now, just remain standing. But Jesus gave a pretty similar situation in the New Testament. If we talk about the wise virgins and the foolish virgins, he gave the parable of how the foolish virgins, they came and stayed a long time, and right before the time of the wedding, they went out to get something that they had forgotten, and they came back and the wedding began. That was a message to us as well. We got to start right and keep going. We got to plan and keep praying and keep believing and keep seeking God and keep reading his word and keep being faithful. Because I don't think it's going to be long till the end comes. I want to hear him say, well done, thy good and faithful servants. Amen? Enter the joys of the Lord. Amen. Find about 3 or 4 people and say, don't you quit. Don't you turn back. Keep on going. Don't slow down at all. You keep going and keep serving God till the day of death in your life. Amen? God bless you. Find somebody to love them and be back Wednesday night to receive